Inside the Narcissist's Playbook, the final discard and the silent psychological war. When you step into a relationship with a narcissist, you are not stepping into love, you are stepping into a cycle. Psychologists often describe this as the loop of illusion and destruction, where affection is nothing more than a baited trap. The narcissist begins with what's called love bombing, a tidal wave of admiration, passion, and devotion so intense that it feels like destiny. But beneath that warmth is a cold calculation. They are mapping your emotions, learning what makes you feel seen, just so they can later use it to make you feel invisible. Eventually, that dazzling affection fades. According to clinical psychologist Dr. Ramani Durvasula, narcissists cannot sustain genuine emotional intimacy because it threatens their fragile sense of control. So once the novelty wears off, once your love no longer props up their ego, discontent brews. They begin to devalue you, not because you changed, but because your adoration is no longer enough to silence the shame they hide within themselves. They start to find fault in your laughter, your habits, even your presence, as if destroying your confidence might rebuild their own. And then comes the discard. For many victims, this phase is abrupt, like being emotionally executed without warning. One day you are their world, and the next you are nothing. But in truth, the discard never comes out of nowhere. As psychologists often explain, narcissists rarely abandon one source of validation until another is ready to take its place. Behind the scenes, they've already been cultivating a new admirer, a new supply, someone naive enough to believe the same false promises that once ensnared you. What feels like sudden betrayal is actually a carefully staged transition in their endless hunt for control. The cruelest part of the discard is not the loss itself, but the way they rewrite the story. Narcissists are master storytellers of distortion. As Dr. Craig Malkin, author of Rethinking Narcissism, notes, they must control the narrative to preserve their grandiose image. They will blame you for everything, the distance, the arguments, the collapse of the relationship. Their goal is not truth, it's preservation. To protect their fragile ego, they must make you the villain, and themselves the wounded hero who tried everything. By now, you've been psychologically conditioned to doubt your own perception, gaslit into confusion for so long that even when they discard you, part of you still wonders if it was your fault. This is the heart of what trauma specialists call the trauma bond, a cycle of emotional reward and punishment that wires your brain to crave approval from the very person who is destroying you. It's why victims often feel a strange panic when the narcissist finally leaves. The silence feels unbearable, not because you miss the abuse, but because your nervous system has been trained to equate chaos with connection. And why do narcissists discard you? The reasons are as varied as their insecurities. Sometimes it's because you've become too difficult to manipulate, your awareness threatens their dominance. Other times, it's because you've stopped feeding their ego, you've grown weary of worshiping their illusions. Or perhaps you've simply begun to see them clearly, and nothing terrifies a narcissist more than being seen. For them, exposure equals annihilation, so they strike first, replacing you before you can reject them. When psychologists observe narcissistic discard patterns, they often note a striking lack of genuine grief. Instead, the narcissist experiences narcissistic injury, a kind of psychological panic when their supply runs out. To them, the relationship was never about love, it was about identity maintenance. Losing you means losing a mirror that reflected back their false perfection. So they scramble to find another reflection, another face to project their fantasy upon, while you're left standing in the wreckage of what was never real. For the victim, the aftermath of discard can feel like psychological dismemberment. Every memory becomes suspect. Every moment of tenderness now feels like manipulation. Therapists often describe recovery from narcissistic abuse as a slow reclamation of reality. It requires rebuilding trust, not in others but in yourself. You begin to relearn that calm does not mean emptiness, and that peace is not the same as loneliness. The discard phase, in essence, is the narcissist's final attempt at domination. Even in leaving, they want to script your pain. But the true turning point, your moment of liberation, begins when you stop reading from their script. When you refuse to accept their version of who you are. When you understand that the discard says nothing about your worth and everything about their emptiness. And though it may not feel like it now, psychologists assure that this is where your healing truly begins. In the silence they leave behind, where you can finally hear your own voice again. After the narcissist walks away, you don't just lose a person, you lose the entire illusion you were taught to believe in. Psychologists often describe this phase as a psychological withdrawal, not unlike detoxing from a powerful drug. You find yourself cycling between disbelief and longing, questioning your every memory. Was any of it real? Did they ever love me? Could I have done something different? This obsessive rumination isn't weakness. It's your mind desperately trying to create coherence after months or years of emotional chaos. Dr. Judith Herman, a trauma expert, explains that survivors of relational abuse seek meaning as a way to restore their shattered sense of self. The mind wants closure, but closure is the one thing the narcissist will never give. For the narcissist, the discard phase is not an ending but a performance. One moment, they are professing eternal love. The next, they act as though you never existed. This emotional whiplash is not accidental. It's an act of psychological domination, a way to assert ultimate control even in departure. According to clinical psychologist Dr. Ramani Durvasula, narcissists use emotional erasure as a defense mechanism. By dehumanizing their former partner, they can avoid facing their own guilt or emptiness. What feels like cruelty to you is, in their mind, self-preservation, but at your expense. You'll notice the sudden coldness, the ghosting, the silence. One day they're affectionate, the next they're indifferent, perhaps even hostile. This is known in psychology as intermittent reinforcement withdrawal, and it's designed, consciously or not, to keep you hooked. The abrupt absence of communication activates panic in the brain's attachment system, much like a child crying for a caregiver who never returns. As trauma therapists often note, this creates an unbearable craving for contact. Not because the narcissist is worthy of your love, but because your nervous system is still wired to seek safety in the very person who destroyed it. The narcissist knows this instinctively. Their silence is strategic. It's not mere avoidance, it's punishment. The silent treatment, psychologists explain, triggers deep feelings of rejection and inadequacy, reopening old emotional wounds. In this stage, the victim often falls into a spiral of self-blame. If only I hadn't said that, maybe they'd come back. This cognitive loop is what keeps survivors tethered to the fantasy. The narcissist's refusal to provide closure ensures that you keep spinning in that confusion, while they've already moved on to their next supply, showcasing a new relationship as proof of their supposed happiness and superiority. This flaunting of the new partner, what psychologists call triangulation, serves a dual purpose. It feeds the narcissist's ego by making them appear desired and irreplaceable, and it deepens your emotional wound by making you feel disposable. They post pictures, make public displays of affection, or leak subtle updates designed to reach you. According to Dr. Carol McBride, author of Will I Ever Be Free of You, this behavior is a continuation of emotional abuse meant to reinforce the message, I'm fine without you. You're nothing. What's important to understand is that the new partner is not being loved. They're being used, just as you once were. They are the next character in the same tragic play. Then comes the smear campaign, a psychological counterattack designed to rewrite history. Narcissists fear exposure more than anything, so they preemptively destroy your credibility. They tell friends, family, colleagues, even your children, that you were unstable, controlling, or toxic. This isn't just about revenge. It's about maintaining control of the narrative. Dr. Craig Malkin explains that narcissists are image addicts. To preserve their fragile self-concept, they must ensure that everyone sees them as the victim. In their mind, if they can destroy your reputation, they can erase their own guilt. For the victim, this secondary betrayal, being painted as the abuser, can feel soul-crushing. It isolates you, deepens your shame, and delays healing. But perhaps the most devastating part of the discard is the denial of closure. Narcissists avoid genuine discussion because conversation threatens exposure. They can't risk accountability, so they vanish instead. They offer vague, contradictory explanations or none at all. This ambiguity traps you in what trauma psychologists call the loop of cognitive dissonance. Your brain struggling to reconcile the loving person you once knew with the cruel stranger before you. The pain of not knowing why becomes an emotional prison. But as therapists emphasize, closure from a narcissist is an illusion. They cannot give it because it would require empathy, something their psychological defense mechanisms won't allow. True closure, therefore, must come from within you, through the slow process of understanding that their behavior was never about your worth, but their wounds. And then, when words fail to wound, they turn to practical cruelty, financial and logistical sabotage. They withhold money, deny access to shared resources, neglect parental duties, or exploit legal loopholes. This is not just spite, it's control by deprivation. Psychologists refer to this as post-separation abuse, a continuation of the power dynamic long after the relationship ends. It's their way of saying, even if you leave, I still decide how much peace you get. The narcissist cannot tolerate equality. They must dominate, even through absence. For the survivor, healing begins the moment they stop seeking fairness from the unfair. Psychologists stress the importance of radical acceptance, acknowledging that you cannot get closure from someone who thrives on chaos. Recovery involves reconnecting to your body, your reality, and your self-worth. Trauma specialists recommend therapy modalities like EMDR, somatic experiencing, or CPT, cognitive processing therapy, to help rewire the trauma bond and reestablish emotional safety. Healing is not fast, but it is possible. And every time you choose not to respond to their bait, every time you choose silence over pleading, you reclaim a piece of your power. Because ultimately, the narcissist's discard is not your ending. It is theirs. The moment they walk away, they begin their next performance, their next illusion, their next temporary love. But you have the chance to step out of the cycle entirely. As one psychologist beautifully puts it, their silence is your beginning. Their erasure is your rebirth. Once you take that final stand, when you say, enough, you will see the narcissist reveal their most desperate, unmasked self. Psychologists often warn that this is the most dangerous stage of all, not because of physical harm necessarily, but because of psychological warfare. When a narcissist loses control, their entire constructed identity begins to crumble. They have spent years scripting themselves as the hero, the savior, or the misunderstood victim. Your decision to walk away threatens that illusion. In their mind, it's not just rejection, it's annihilation. Dr. Ramani Durvasula describes this moment as narcissistic injury in its purest form, the emotional equivalent of a wound to the ego so deep that it triggers rage, desperation, and retaliation. This is why many victims report that the real abuse begins after they leave. The narcissist, stripped of control, now weaponizes every possible tool: finances, reputation, children, even the legal system, to reassert dominance. Psychologists call this post-separation abuse, and it is designed to keep you emotionally entangled even after physical separation. They might drag you through endless court battles, intentionally miss child support payments, or distort parenting agreements just to watch you unravel. To the narcissist, chaos is control. When you're stressed, fearful, and exhausted, they feel powerful again. And beneath that cruelty lies their unhealed wound, a deep, unacknowledged shame they cannot bear to face. The tragedy, as many trauma therapists point out, is that society, and especially the justice system, often misinterprets these dynamics. Narcissists, with their charm, charisma, and surface-level confidence, can manipulate authority figures with ease. Judges, mediators, even therapists can sometimes be fooled by their polished narratives. Meanwhile, the victim, worn down by months or years of gaslighting and emotional abuse, appears unstable, emotional, or overly reactive, which the narcissist then uses as proof of their claims. This systemic failure adds a new layer of trauma: institutional betrayal. Survivors often leave courtrooms or mediation sessions feeling invisible, unheard, and once again punished for the narcissist's lies. And just when you think they're gone for good, the Hoover discard loop begins. A cruel psychological cycle named after the vacuum cleaner brand, because that's exactly what it feels like, being sucked back in. After discarding you, the narcissist might suddenly reappear. Through a text, a call, a seemingly innocent check-in. They might apologize, reminisce about the good times, or claim they've changed. But psychologists emphasize that this is not love. It's control disguised as reconciliation. Each time they re-enter your life, it's not to heal, it's to reopen the wound. Their intent is to test whether they still have power over your emotions. If they can make you cry, doubt, or hope again, they win. For the narcissist, these Hoover attempts serve another psychological function. They help soothe their ego fragility. By proving they can still draw you in, they momentarily silence their internal shame. But for the victim, each re-entry reignites the trauma bond, a biochemical addiction formed during cycles of love and abuse. Psychologists liken it to the effect of intermittent reinforcement, where unpredictable rewards, moments of affection, and punishments, periods of cruelty, wire the brain to crave emotional resolution. That's why it feels impossible to just move on. Your nervous system is still trapped in a loop of hope and fear, desperately seeking closure from the very person who will never give it. When you finally decide to end the cycle yourself, to set that boundary, to say, "I'm done," you trigger what psychologists refer to as narcissistic collapse. Suddenly, the narcissist's mask begins to slip. They cannot bear the idea that you were the one to end it. Their fragile sense of superiority demands that they be the one in control. So they fight back through guilt trips, smear campaigns, intimidation, or false promises of change. Every apology, every "I'll get therapy," every "I can't live without you" is not about love. It's about manipulation. As trauma psychologist Dr. Lindsay Gibson notes, narcissists don't want reconciliation. They want re-entry. Once they've regained emotional access, the cycle resets. Love, devalue, discard all over again. This is why experts emphasize the no-contact rule. It's not punishment, it's protection. Going no contact starves the narcissist of supply and gives your brain time to detox from the emotional addiction. But for those who share children or unavoidable responsibilities, gray rock becomes the strategy. The metaphor is simple yet powerful. Become as dull and unreactive as a gray stone. No emotion, no engagement, no reaction. By depriving the narcissist of the drama they crave, you render their manipulation ineffective. Psychologists describe this as behavioral extinction, when a toxic pattern loses power because it no longer yields results. It's not easy, but it's the path to reclaiming emotional autonomy. Still, breaking free from a narcissist is not a single event. It's a psychological journey. It requires not only logistical planning, securing finances, housing, safety, but emotional rebuilding as well. Victims often underestimate how deeply their sense of self has been eroded. Years of gaslighting can make you question your own reality, your memory, even your worth. That's why trauma-informed therapy is essential. Modalities like EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, or somatic experiencing can help release stored trauma from the body, while cognitive behavioral therapy helps reconstruct self-trust and inner boundaries. And most importantly, healing requires compassion, especially for yourself. You cannot rush recovery from psychological warfare. Every small act of self-care, every time you choose silence over reaction, every moment you remind yourself, "It wasn't me, it was them," is a step toward liberation. Psychologists often remind survivors that narcissists don't change, but victims do. They grow stronger, wiser, and more self-aware. In time, the chaos that once defined your life becomes a distant echo. So yes, leaving a narcissist might feel like starting a war, but it's a war worth fighting, because on the other side of that battle lies your peace, your clarity, and your freedom. As one therapist once said, "You're not losing them. You're finally finding yourself."